On this Thursday night, stalemate in the nation's capital. As protesters vow to stay put, demands for answers grow. Who is funding the protest and who's responsible for enforcing the law?
One has to be very, very cautious before deploying military.
Also tonight, who's lining up to lead the federal Tories?
No, that's not of any interest to me.
A look at who's ruling themselves out and who might be in the running to replace Erin O'Toole.
No, I have my hands full.
Plus, Saskatchewan's premier signals the end of the road for COVID-19 restrictions.
What's necessary is your freedom.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We are starting again in the nation's capital tonight and the disruption caused by that noisy protest near Parliament Hill. The so-called Freedom Convoy that's restricting freedoms for those who live and work in downtown Ottawa. Organizers who Ottawa police say are getting funding and organizational help from the United States are refusing to budge. Ottawa's police chief, under pressure to act, has said there may not be a policing solution. And today the defense minister tweeted this: "The Canadian Forces are not a police force. There are no plans for the Canadian Armed Forces to be involved in the current situation in Ottawa in a law enforcement capacity." Well, pressure is mounting for someone in authority to enforce the law and clear the protest. And now GoFundMe, the platform used to raise more than $10 million for protesters, is being called to testify before a parliamentary committee about where the money is going. Eric Sorensen has our top story tonight.
It's become double-barreled gridlock. The downtown core of Ottawa paralyzed by a small group shutting down ordinary life and business, and the decision-making on what to do about it seemingly frozen in place. The military could end it, but the Prime Minister says that's not an option, not right now.
It is not something that anyone should enter in lightly. But as of now, there have been no requests, and that is not in the cards right now.
Yet Ottawa police have made clear they don't see police action as an option either.
There is likely no policing solution to this.
The fear is that a relatively stable demonstration could become volatile.
You don't want to escalate it. The focus has to be keep the peace.
But how then does it end? A chief organizer for the truckers says they're not leaving.
Our departure will be based on the Prime Minister doing what is right, ending all mandates and restrictions on our freedoms.
Tamara Leach is a central figure in the standoff. She began a GoFundMe campaign for the trucker convoy for fuel and food that's raised more than $10 million. But there are questions whether the money's coming from outside the country. GoFundMe has blocked the fundraiser, stating it's currently paused and under review to ensure it complies with our terms of service and applicable laws. Leach now has a legal team trying to release the millions of dollars.
There's audit procedures and so on in place which will allow GoFundMe to flow the funds.
Though when questions were asked about possible American contributions, the news conference was cut off.
Glad to have you come out today.
Another question about the funding.
The other organizer named on the GoFundMe page was well received on Fox News, describing Canada's government in disturbing terms.
Justin Trudeau's promises of sunny ways into dark authoritarian oppression and control.
Why has it fallen
Yes.
to you to connect the obvious dots? God bless you for that.
There are extreme elements in the Ottawa protests, and huge fundraising raises alarms for some.
Where is this money going? Are we okay if 1 million goes to causes that we find out of the realm of what is socially acceptable in 2022?
Today, the Commons Committee on Public Safety and National Security met.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mr. Noor Mohammed?
Yes.
And they voted unanimously to have the GoFundMe website testify about its safeguards in releasing close to $10 million for the trucker convoy. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Now to developments in southern Alberta and that protest blocking a busy border crossing. Traffic is moving again, but the situation is not fully resolved. Protesters say they'll resume the blockade unless all COVID-related public health restrictions are lifted. And now Alberta's Premier appears to be bowing to that pressure. Heather Yourex-West reports.
After nearly a week of disruption and delay, the Canada-US border crossing at Coutts, Alberta is open to traffic again.
Relief, I can work. I got bills to pay.
On the fifth day of an illegal border blockade, protesters agreed to move their vehicles late Wednesday afternoon.
That's not to say that the situation isn't tenuous and that things can't disintegrate very fast, but as long as the parties are giving on both ends of the spectrum and as long as voices are being heard.
Still, protesters plan to remain until all federal vaccine mandates and provincial COVID restrictions are lifted. With RCMP limiting access to the community, protest supporters also continue to gather beyond a police checkpoint near the community of Milk River.
This is very important. You know, we have to let the world know that this is the vaccine mandates. You can't force that on people that are religiously not able to do that.
According to the Premier, Alberta's restrictions could be lifted soon. On Wednesday night, Jason Kenney said on social media, "I get the frustration out there, but the end of COVID restrictions is near. Please stay tuned in the coming days for more information." But Alberta's government has no jurisdiction over the federal or U.S. COVID policies that require truckers traveling across the border get the vaccine, something the vast majority of truckers have already done.
I just need to work, so I understand what they're doing, I get it, but for the ones that need to work, you guys carry on protesting peacefully, just let us go through.
And at this RCMP checkpoint north of Coutts, traffic does appear to still be getting through, but with the southbound lanes jammed with a line of protesters going back more than a kilometer, there are significant delays. So while the border blockade may be over for now, things are far from back to normal here in southern Alberta. Donna?
Okay, Heather Yourex-West near Milk River, Alberta tonight. Thank you. A Conservative MP who is a staunch supporter of the trucker protest has been chosen as the interim leader of the federal party. Candice Bergen was welcomed in her new role in the House of Commons today. The Manitoba MP was chosen by her caucus last night after the majority of Tory MPs voted to get rid of Erin O'Toole. Bergen's time at the top will be temporary, though, while the Tories launch their third leadership race in 6 years. Who will step up to take control of the fractured party is a hot topic of debate. Our senior political correspondent David Akin has been talking to senior Tories. David.
Well, Donna, at this point, it's probably easier to start off with a list of who is not running. Let's start with the Premier of Alberta.
No. I am so completely focused on these incredibly huge challenges we're facing right now. That's not of any interest to me.
The Premier of Ontario?
No, I have my hands full. I love being Premier of this province.
Some are pushing Patrick Brown, the former Ontario PC leader and current Mayor of Brampton.
Will you run?
My only focus right now is getting Brampton reopened.
Brad Wall has said no. Same with Peter MacKay, Ronna Ambrose, and Lisa Raitt. But Raitt, who ran for leader in 2017, knows what she wants in a new leader.
So gender doesn't matter. I think the only must-have is French. Other than that, what I'm looking for is somebody who is going to be respected in whatever field they're in, politics, business, law, whatever it is, as long as they have the respect of their peers, that they can speak convincingly, and they are able to have people follow them.
Right now, the buzz in Conservative circles is all about Pierre Poilievre. He's a former Harper cabinet minister who is tremendously popular with the grassroots and with caucus. He's also one of the party's best draws in terms of fundraising, but so far he is not saying anything about leadership. Same with Leslyn Lewis, the Ontario MP who ran in 2019 and finished third. Another Ontario MP, Marilyn Gladue, wanted to run last time but ran into fundraising problems. She's thinking of trying again.
I think this is a chance for a fresh start, chance to unify and rebuild.
No one is expected to announce that they're running, though, until the party sets the rules that will not be set for several weeks, but which will be crucial in shaping the race. A long campaign, for example, might attract people from outside politics. In fact, some influential Conservatives have been encouraging Mark Mulroney to run. He's a Bay Street banker and the 42-year-old son of the former PM, Brian Mulroney. But a short race with a high entry fee would definitely favor insider candidates with their own fundraising network, candidates like Pierre Poilievre. Donna?
Okay. David Akin in Ottawa, thank you. The U.S. president says American special forces have carried out an overnight raid in Syria that killed the new leader of the so-called Islamic State. It happened in northwestern Syria in a border town near Turkey. First responders on the ground say at least 13 people were killed, including 6 children and 4 women. Jackson Prosco is with me from Washington now. Jackson, what more do we know about this operation?
Well, Donna, this operation was months in the planning and in many ways mirrors the operation that killed Osama bin Laden. U.S. Special Forces troops were sent in by helicopter for the pre-dawn raid. The Pentagon says one of those helicopters suffered a mechanical failure and had to be destroyed in the field. Speaking to the nation, President Biden says he chose to send in troops over airstrikes to avoid civilian casualties. But as U.S. forces moved in, the Pentagon says Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qarashi detonated a bomb that killed him and members of his own family, including several children.
In a final act of desperate cowardness, he, with no regard to the lives of his own family or others in the building, he chose to blow himself up, not just to the vest, but to blow up that 3rd floor, rather than face justice for the crimes he has committed.
Jackson, al-Qarashi kept a lower profile than the previous leader of ISIS. What do we know about him?
Well, Donna, the 45-year-old was believed to be attempting to rebuild the so-called Islamic State following the death of his predecessor. The group had started to see a resurgence in places like Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon. While the White House insists this strike has delivered a major blow to the organization, it's worth noting that there are still cells and sympathizers of ISIS out there. They're still in existence, Donna.
Okay, Jackson Prosco in Washington. Thanks. Now to the tension over Ukraine. Tonight we're taking you to a part of Eastern Europe that is usually quiet, but there are some warning signs now that could change. It's where Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia meet. Border crossings are open and it is business as usual. Still, Belarus and Russia have been conducting military exercise, and that's making Ukraine and the West nervous. Our Europe Bureau Chief Crystal Gamansing traveled to the area just past the Ukraine border.
Right now, I am standing on neutral territory. Behind the camera is Ukraine. Over to this side is Russia, and Belarus is that way. The monument behind me is the Three Sisters Monument, a sign of the friendship, of the unification of this area. Of course, that's not the situation right now.
We have special forces, people like who control the territory, and if something happens, they will arrive here as soon as possible.
While State Border Officer Alexandra Stupak says they haven't seen an increase in activity here, military intelligence provides a different view. As many as 30,000 Russian forces could be taking part in military drills on the Belarusian side of the border.
This is the biggest Russian deployment there since the Cold War.
Still, the three-way border remains open. Truckers who have driven the route say they've seen nothing.
No, zero.
The hope is that it stays that way. The northern front is peaceful, unlike the Donbass region in the east. Fighting there has been ongoing since 2014, when Russian-backed separatists captured large areas in the region after Russia annexed Crimea. The east appears to be where most Ukrainian soldiers are being deployed, but units are on the move. On our drive north from Kyiv, we passed one convoy. In nearby Horodnya, a Russian invasion is inconceivable.
I don't believe how this could happen, because I have my sister there who is living there, and I have my nephews who is also living there. I can't understand how this could happen, because we are relatives.
Still, some people here tell Global News they'd pick up arms to defend Ukraine.
I don't know if we will live, and we will see. Only God knows how it will be.
For now, the shops are open and trucks are crossing the border. Those who patrol here know peace in this vast multinational intersection could be disrupted in an instant. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, Senkivka, Ukraine.
Planning to live with COVID-19 coming up. Why experts are urging caution as some regions move to lift all restrictions. Saskatchewan's premier intends to remove all COVID public health restrictions in the coming days. Scott Moe made the announcement in a late-night social media post yesterday. He's not acting on scientific advice, but on what he's hearing from constituents.
We may continue to see COVID morph into different variants and forms in the coming months and years, but we need to end the perpetual state of crisis. What's necessary is your freedom. What's necessary is getting your life back to normal.
The Premier says his province will manage COVID much like other communicable diseases. It is a shift some jurisdictions around the world have already made. As Jamie Maracher reports, experts warn against moving too fast.
The grill at this Saskatoon restaurant might be hot, but thanks to COVID, business has cooled.
People, they don't feel very safe to go out, and that's why the business is slow.
2 years of staying home, masking, social distancing, and then vaccinating to tamp COVID spread has left many Canadians desperate for anything normal. And the idea of living with this coronavirus is no longer novel.
Moving forward, we'll be treating COVID the way we treat, say, the seasonal flu or other respiratory viruses that are circulating within the community.
Annual vaccines and common sense, hand washing and staying home when sick will be our safety nets as experts move away from recommending stringent restrictions. A new study out of Johns Hopkins University suggests pandemic lockdowns were not effective at reducing mortality rates globally, and a growing list of countries are already opening up, most recently Denmark and Sweden.
They're in a completely different situation than we are regarding ICUs. Their ICU numbers are actually going down.
A key indicator in making the move to return to normal. Although hospitalization numbers in Ontario and Quebec appear to have plateaued, across Western Canada, they are still rising. Manitoba, BC, and Saskatchewan with record numbers this week.
The burden is largely saddled from those reopening plans when they don't go so well on the frontline healthcare system.
Making timing critical and specific to each province.
If we see another surge, then we've taken the wrong decision, or somebody wasn't listening to the evidence as it was coming in. Let's treat it carefully and cautiously.
With the goal of a spring or summer with fewer masks and mandates. But new variants remain a variable too. Jamie Maracher, Global News, Toronto.
Cash cow ahead. What's causing Canadian dairy prices to spike? If you've noticed you have been paying more for dairy products, you're not alone. This week, there was a steep increase. Part of the reason is that dairy farmers are now getting paid more for the milk they produce, but that is not the only factor driving up prices. And as Ann Gaviola explains, there is more sticker shock in store.
The pandemic has thrown dairy farmers one curveball after another. To help them out, the Dairy Commission this fall announced an 8.4% increase in the price paid to milk producers. The biggest annual jump ever, nearly double the largest previous increase. This hike took effect on Tuesday, and it's already hitting consumers at the till. And it's yet another blow to struggling restaurants.
It's going to hurt a lot.
Global News compared 4-liter Canadian milk prices this week against their January costs. In Halifax, it's up 8.6% in some spots. Prices at some Toronto stores jumped nearly 15%. And in parts of Calgary and across BC, the price soared nearly 16%. Multiple requests for comment from Loblaw, Longo's, Walmart, and Sobeys were ignored. A spokesperson for Metro, which also owns Food Basics, said Metro does not comment on future pricing or pricing strategies. In an email to Global News, the Canadian Dairy Commission says higher input costs such as feed and fuel required this bump in price. Farmers must be able to meet their expenses and pay local suppliers and employees.
Sadly, and really unfortunately, we may see restaurants, local coffee shops close because of that.
Restaurants Canada says this could be a knockout punch, especially for pizza places and coffee shops, which rely heavily on dairy. And Canadian households will have to pay more or choose milk and cheese alternatives too.
If families start being unable to provide milk to their kids, or they start rationing it or diluting it, you're going to start to see an increase in health concerns.
According to research from Dalhousie University, the average family of 4 can expect to pay an additional $200 in dairy groceries this year. And that's on top of the rising cost of just about everything. Donna?
And Gaviola in Toronto, thanks. From the soccer field to Olympic ice. Next, the Canadians dominating the world of sports. Canada's men's soccer team has continued its impressive push towards the World Cup with a 2-0 win over El Salvador. The game included a bizarre goal from captain Atiba Hutchinson, helping the team capture its 6th straight victory. Canada can officially clinch a spot in the World Cup during their next games in March. Well, the opening ceremonies are tomorrow, but the Winter Games are already underway in Beijing, and Team Canada is crushing it. The women's hockey team steamrolled Switzerland in their first match, winning 12-1. It did come at a cost, though. Veteran Canadian forward Melanie Daou was forced to leave the game because of an injury. It's unclear if she'll be back for the next game against Finland. And Canada and curling, of course, go hand in hand. The mixed doubles team had their first win at the Beijing Games. Ottawa's Rachel Homan and John Morris beat Norway 7-6. Their next matchup will be tough. They play the silver medalists from the last Games, Switzerland. And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is this beautiful shot from Powell River, BC. There are beautiful spots all over Canada. Please email us yours to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.